over to you, Massoud.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed Jan. Greetings to everyone, and welcome to today's IIEA's monthly webinar session. My name is Massoud Karshenas, and I will be chairing today's webinar. I'm delighted to see so many of you have joined the webinar today. We have two fascinating presentations. The first presentation is a joint paper by Behnaz Saboori from Sultan Qaboos University at Oman and Hassan Qolipur Fereyduni from Western Sydney University in Australia. And the paper is titled Support for Expanded Government Economic Role Among Iranian Women. Behnaz will be presenting this paper. The second presentation is a joint paper by Shayan, Haji Kermani and Mohammad Hosseini, both from the Tehran Institute of Advanced Studies at Khatam University in Tehran. And the title of their paper is Culture, Female Labor Force Participation, and Occupational Choices, Evidence from Iran. The paper would be presented by Shayan. Each presenter would have 20 minutes to present their paper, and questions and answers would be done after both papers are presented. You can submit your questions using the question and answer feature at any time. I have had the pleasure of reading both papers, and I would be very happy to send my detailed comments to the authors after this session, as we do not have the time to discuss the papers in such detail here. Well, without further delay, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Behnaz Saboori. Behnaz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Prof, for your kind introduction. So I would like, first of all, before I start, to share my screen and then start. Okay, I found it. Okay. So let me go to presenter view. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for your kind introduction. And also, I'm very happy. This is my honor today. I'm presenting our paper, our research here on behalf of my research team, Dr. Hassan and Dr. Reza. Actually, I cannot find what I shared. So can you see my?
Yes, we see that.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
I don't know why
you can
I
see
cannot.
It, but you want to move it.
Okay. Now I think you can see it through.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see, the title of our work is Support for Expanded Government Economic Role Among Iranian Women. And this has been done by us, Hassan, Reza, and me. Let's start by our motivation for this study. There is a survey that has been done in, just now I found that in 4 rounds, that we have access to 3 rounds of this survey. And based on this survey, the study actually is derived by the observation of Iranian women preferences regarding the role of government in the economy over the past 2 decades. And as a very first and primarily observation, we see that there is significant differences in preferences between Iranian men and women, and also between Iranian men and worldwide women regarding the intervention and the support of government in economy. So let's look at this table as it is. It shows that yes, Iranian women preferences for government ownership of business has increased in one side from 2005 to 2020. And there is statistically significant differences between perspective of women and men in terms of government ownership and government participation, or let's say intervention in businesses. So this is the first thing that brought us to this study. Why and what are the reasons behind this, or what are the factors that forming these women preferences for such a perspective? Another perspectives comes from exploring empirical studies. When we glance some of recent studies on this topic on gender preferences for government roles, we found that yes, there are studies, and in different cases in different countries, that most of them, they found that first they found that there is let's say women generally prefer larger government roles than men, particularly in supporting social welfare programs, healthcare, and government intervention. Groups of studies, they highlight that social context and emotional responses to social problems and perceptions of fairness significantly influence these idea differences. And also groups, they found that gender influences pro-market opinions, with women being less supportive of market-oriented solutions compared to men. So all these empirical studies, just to save time, I didn't bring more here, but the conclusion that we can get from these empirical studies shows that there are some factors behind these gender differences, that this can be political, economic, social, cultural, that should be studied. Let's look at this idea from theoretical supports or theoretical background on gender-specific preferences for government intervention. That I would like to start from median voter theorem by Black, 1948, that he mentioned that policies align with the preferences of the median voter. And if in a country, those median voters are women, that government policies will reflect these preferences, and it should be in line and compatible with what women wants. And also Rodrigue, 1996, he talked about the economic policies that are influenced by politics. Women unique economic and social positions will lead government involvement and government policies. And also Drazen, 2000, he talked about political decisions which are shaped by different groups, and women as a distinct group may advocate for policies that benefit them more. Roland, 2002, historical and institutional factors were among the factors that shape economic preferences among women's support for greater government control. So this theory also shows the foundation for this study, that the study is founded and it has been built by some theoretical overview and perspective. So there is a research gap. While studies have explored gender differences in economic preferences, there is lack of research on why Iranian women specifically advocate for larger government role in the economy. Based on this research gap, doing such a research will be has some importance for the policy makers. I want to tell these importance in three groups. First of all, understanding the preferences of Iranian women. a critical demographic group in Iran provides valuable insight for policymakers aiming to design very effective and suitable policies that address their needs and preferences. Second, privatization as a target for any country, including Iran, aligning policies with women's preferences become essential for achieving these objectives. And lastly, this research holds significant implications for political strategies during election campaigns. So enabling political parties to tailor their approaches by considering factors such as geographic location, age demographics, or other economic priorities of women in their approaches or in their programs. With all these, the research objective of this study is to identify the determinants of Iranian women preferences for a larger government role in the economy. Before I explain the model and the methodology or going to the econometric side of this study, I would like to just have a very short overview of the historical, let's say, contribution or involvement of women in society. So I start from Qajar dynasty that at that time, women's primary role was only for home production with that feudal and traditional society, but some expansion of women's presence in the industries due to lack of enough labor or connection with Westerns has increased. In a constitutional revolution, women began engaging in political activities. Some founding associations like women associations appeared, and still at that time, women, they didn't have right to vote. And then we have Reza Shah modernization era that supports for women education, workforce participation, and women entered labor markets, particularly in administrative roles, teaching, health system, and factories. And in Mohammad Reza Shah, we can see that some women presence in various sectors intensified. Two initiatives like right to vote and family protection law was on that era, and women gained access to higher education and some political positions at Mohammad Reza Shah time as well. And in Islamic Revolution, at the beginning, we had initial rollback of women's rights, limited roles due to gender segregation policies, and then later we had in the wartime, it returned back that women's contribution increased, including nursing, producing, voluntary work among women in society. In post-revolutionary period, women participation was revived through development plans, government supports, rise in social media activism we observed, and some key protests in 2022 following Mahsa Amini's death. We have the movement of women, life, and freedom. So this is just, I'm not good at history, just this is a very brief overview of what has happened or the evolution of women participation in different eras in Iran history. Let's talk about the data that we used for this study. We used the World Value Survey 2020, and about 1,500 respondents were interviewed in this survey, 49% female and 51% male. And the data collection was paper and pencil interviewing, and it was the data was collected from all provinces, ethnic groups, and different city sizes. The model that has been specified based on theoretical that we reviewed and empirical studies And the gap of the studies that which available now obvious in terms of the context of Iran, this model has been specified that government preferences is the dependent variable and traditional gender role, post-materialistic index, confidence in government, political orientation, employment, education, marital status, income, age, and city size among some demographics explanatory variables. For the dependent variable, women preference for government ownership of business measured on a 10-point Likert scale. The 1 is private ownership and 10 is government ownership. And the higher values is preferences for larger state ownership and government ownership in economy. The methods that has been used for this study is ordered logistic regression, and it has been robust by ordinary least square. The hypotheses are that women with more traditional gender roles, greater confidence in government, and certain demographic characteristics are expected to prefer larger government role in the economy. Let's see results. If we divided results for in 2 groups, women and men, so the results related to Iranian women shows that among explanatory variables, traditional gender role and confidence in government, political orientation, fundamentalists, employment, homemakers, age 30 to 49 and 50 and more. These are among the variables that are significantly positive associate. They have positive associate with the dependent variables, which is the government ownership or intervention in economy. And we have post-materialistic index and city size that they have a negative association with the dependent variable. And other variables are not significant. Looking at the results for Iranian men, the statistically significant determinants are post-materialistics and city size with negative sign, and confidence in government and political orientation that are positively associated with the government involvement and intervention in the economy. The variables that are not significant for the data that has been collected among men are variables that has been listed here. So I just tried to summarize the results. Results for women shows that we have traditional gender role as a positive association, confidence in government, political orientation, fundamentalists, and employment, homemakers, age more than 30, with positive association, and city size, and only post-materialistic with negative association for women model, and for men post-materialistic index and city size with negative association, and on the other side confidence in government, political orientation with a positive association. I think this one later can help us for discussing the results. The policy implications of this study shows that traditional gender roles linked to women favoring government ownership, so promoting gender equality through education, media, initiatives in entrepreneurship, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and politics is essential. The negative association between post-materialistic values and women preferences for government ownership highlights the need to foster democratic values like freedom, equality, participation, and transparency. Confidence in government correlates with preferences for state ownership, emphasizing the importance of improving transparency, reducing corruption, and enhancing public services. Conservative political views align with preferences for government ownership, suggesting policies should balance traditional values with modern economic approaches for inclusivity. And demographic factors such as age and city size and gender roles shape preferences for government ownership. So it necessitating targeted economic programs and regional development initiatives. And finally, let me talk about the limitation and some future recommendation while we have done this research. First of all, I would like to mention that this is the very primary stage of our study. And since this is a sensitive topic, we have discussed about our results with some expert in social science, specifically experts in issues related to women, in Iranian women. And we are going to add more policy implications and more to this study. And this is really our pleasure, and we are grateful if you have any idea how we can improve our policy implications. Okay, let me finish my presentation with limitation and future recommendation. The existing survey may not have fully captured all relevant variables, limiting in-depth exploration. So we recommend we can develop a tailored survey to better capture the factors influencing gender preferences and economic intervention. The sample may not fully represent all socio-economic and regional groups across Iran, although they claim that it is a worldwide survey, but we recommend designing separate surveys accounting for different socio-economic and regionality to ensure more balanced representation. We recommend employing advanced statistical and econometric methods to explore this relationship more and enhance the robustness of the study. And one thing that is very important, this data, this round of data that has been collected during March and April 2020 coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it may have influenced respondents' views. And we, although our this is one of the privilege of our work to mention that we bring different factors to determine these gender preferences like social, political, economic factors, but we suggest that there is a need for separate studies focusing on social, political, economic factors individually influencing gender preferences and government economic interventions deeply. And this is just from, I think I am exactly on time. Am I right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much for keeping the time very, very exact. And what I really like about this paper is that it discusses the social and economic role of women in a historical context and then uses that context to interpret the results. So if you can use earlier world value surveys to see how different cohorts of women change their responses according to their experiences, that would be excellent. Anyway,
Yes,
so
we are going to do this.
great, thanks. So moving to the next presentation by Shayan Kermani. So without further delay, Shayan, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, sir. Let me share the screen. So you have my screen right now?
Yes, indeed, yes.
Good evening from Tehran. This is my pleasure to be here. This is a real pleasure for me to be here. This is my first ever presentation in this community, so I really hope that it goes well. And this was originally my master's dissertation under the supervision of Mohammad Hosseini, my co-author, and we managed to make a working paper out of it. So let's get to the paper. As you can see, the paper is about women in Iran. The situation for women in Iran is not good, and they are not in the labor market. So we are trying to see why is this the situation in Iran. So I want to start off with this table. So as you can see, this table is women's response to the question that why are you not working in the labor market? And the majority of them, like 19% of them, choose the option like personal and family related responsibilities. So it clearly states that there is something with their identity, right? So as you can see, there are other options like being discouraged or being pregnant or do not need to work, but they choose the personal and family issues. This means that we have identity problem for women, and they think that they have more important responsibilities than being than like participating in the labor market. So this means that we have problems with attitudes and with culture. They can partly be responsible for that. So let's see our attitudes in comparison. This data is from Word Value Survey, like the paper that you've seen. We can see that like 70% of people, the y-axis is the percent of respondents who either agree or strongly agree with this statement above. Like 70% of women in Iran are agree or strongly agree with men should have more right to get a job when jobs are scarce. And like 15% of them are agree with men make better business executive than women do. As you can see, the attitudes in Iran is not in good shape as the participation rate for women in Iran. So in this paper, in this talk, I want to say that I want to talk about cultural influence on women's labor market outcomes. And we do this by using a cross-province variation in attitudes. So basically, we rank provinces based on how conservative they are regarding women's role in the women's appearance in the labor market. And we identify two channels. The first is the vision that we all know, the male breadwinner and a homemaker wife. And the second one is the attitudes regarding like the occupation a woman can attain in the labor market. So this second attitude is based on the first one. I will tell more about this in a few seconds. So all of our evidence are from repeated cross sections. We use a household expenditure and income survey, the HACE in short. And we use cross-province and cross-gender variations. So basically, we are trying to eliminate like institutional effects since we are looking at the provinces under the same country. And we are looking at cross-gender variations because we believe that there are unobserved effects, unobserved variables that are affecting both genders. So we're trying to eliminate those and just isolate the effect of culture as much as we can. The thing is, the limitation of our work is that we cannot control for the demand side fully, and we are trying to eliminate the effects. So we try to test the U-shape hypothesis from Clausen 2015, where he states that women with some levels of education are suffering the most from culture. So we are trying to test it, whether it's true or not. And we try to robust our results with different measurements, with different data sets. We particularly try to use time use survey, and we proxy these attitudes with actual activities that people do. And I will tell you which activity. So let's get to how we measure culture. We have a survey in Iran called National Values and Attitude Survey. Yeah, we use like the third wave. It is administrative. It run by Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance, Farhang Urshad Islami in Persian. And it has 12 questions regarding women in the labor market. 3 of them are like, do you agree with women being in the labor market? Do you think that the sole responsibility of women is just to be the housewife? And there are 9 questions regarding the proper occupation that a woman can have in the labor market. Like, do you argue that a woman can be like president, being a judge, being like a business executive, and so on and so forth? So we try to rank provinces again based on how conservative they are, based on the score that they have attained in the survey. This slide is our attempt to justify that these 2 dimensions are they have like a certain relationship to each other. So for like simplicity, I will use CCP, like conservative culture toward participation, and CCO for conservative culture toward occupation. It's just a long phrase. And yeah, so the relationship between these 2, as you can see in this slide, is like provinces with high levels of CCP or conservative culture toward participation exhibit higher CCO as well. So we can say that CCP is somehow nested under like CCO, and we use this for predicting something. Like if our theory is right, we expect to see no effect from CCO to participation, and we expect to see some effect from CCP in the occupation that women choose, right? So we tested either. And to further disentangle these 2 dimensions, we see that they don't have the perfect correlation here. Let me hide this. They don't have the perfect correlation here, so there are some like orthogonal properties, and as you can see, these 2 traits are like correlated with different traits. So CCP is more correlated with like son preferences or the promotion opportunity for women, which is like to our opinion, CCP is more correlated with traits that are in favor of men, like patriarchal traits, and CCO is correlated with like traits that are against norm violation, right? Women being in male-dominated occupations, like as you can see, high punishment for norm violation. Or banning books that hurt religious people, or mandatory hijab. These are the things that against norm violation, right? And certainly there are like traits that are correlated with both of them, like divorce rights for women, which lies like in both of those definitions that I said. So this is the spatial distribution of these 2 indices. And as you can see with the things that I've just said, CCO is related to religion, and the province that exhibit like the highest conservativeness is the Qom, intuitively. And here in CCP, while Qom is like it like has high levels of conservativeness, but the highest level belongs to like Azerbaijan Sharqi. Yeah, so a possible problem with our measurement would be that we are just getting the noise, and these rankings just mean nothing. And to see that this ranking is like persistent through history, we use the first wave. And we can see that a significant correlation is in place between these 2 waves and these 2 rankings. This is for CCP, for participation. And while we hadn't the same questions for occupation in the first wave, we used the banning books that help religious people question. And we see that these 2 exhibit like a significant correlation too. So we are trying to justify that we are not getting noises, and we see some like meaningful ranking here. I hope that I've cleared the measurements for culture here. So this is these are other data set that we've used. I'm just gonna move a little bit faster to be on time. The household expenditure and income survey, we use it for individual level data. We estimate our equation at the individual level data because we want to control for other traits like the number of children or other things. And we need household income information because the non-labor income is one of the effective variables in women's decision whether or not to join the labor market. So we don't use labor force survey because of that, but we use labor survey when we try to look at the aggregate labor market patterns. And use time use survey as a robustness check. These are the waves of time use survey. The first two waves contains housework and childcare, but the wave for what the last wave in Hazar I don't know. Contains housework separately. So we when we try to estimate the equation about participation, we have to separate these two different set of waves, and we try to proxy the attitudes towards participation with the amount of housework done by husband. So we control for the total family work, and we try to estimate the coefficient for the share that belongs to the husband, right? And for the occupation part, as you see, CCO is correlated with religious traits. So we try to proxy it with the amount of religious practice done by family. And this is our empirical methodology. This is the reduced form equation that we estimate. As you can see, these two interaction terms are the terms that we are interested in. The outcome variable could be being whether they are in the labor market or not for the participation part, and it is being in a female-dominated occupation when we are trying to look at the CCO part. And we have defined female-dominated occupations based on ILO definition. Whenever the share of women in a certain occupation is above 16%, we call that occupation a female-dominated occupation. So we control for a vector of individual level controls, like for the number of children, for the non-labor income, years of education, so on. And we control for like province-specific time variant variables. So we use the fixed effect for province, but we try to control for time variant properties like the GDP. We control like average household income for the GDP, and the population and real wages for women and men separately. These are all in this part. And as I said, we control for time. The time fixed effect of time and province. Yeah. So this is the equation for time use. This is contains only women. And as you can see, family religious practice, we use this whenever we want to see the outcome about being in a female-dominated occupation, and use the husband housework whenever we want to look at the participation part. So this is our main result about female-dominated occupations. So these columns are contains different control variables. As you can see, as we expected, when we just put CCP alone, we get some levels of significance in here. So, but in the presence of CCO, it is gone. So the thing that I want you to remember from this table is the significant effect here, and like a 4% marginal effect when you go from like the most liberal province to the most conservative province. This is like the effect that we have captured. And this is regarding participation. Again, as you can see, CCO alone doesn't mean anything. This emphasizes on the nested form that I've talked about. And as you can see, in the female-dominated part, the family income is not significant, but in participation outcome, it is significant. This is an interesting evidence. This is an interesting implication. And this is the effect when you move from the most liberal province to the most conservative province, like 10% decrease in the probability of the female being in the labor market. We are interpreting these results in this way, since the participation rate for men is equal for all of the provinces. For men in the working age, the difference is just very modest. And to see that our measure is good, we are trying to see if in the high income part of the community or the country, we see a higher effect, since the non-labor income is like an effective thing here. So as you can see, the high income part is the part that exhibits the effect here. And this is in line with literature. We again see this in this result, where the rural part are going to work out of necessity no matter what, and we can see the effect in urban areas in line with the literature. And so this is the U-shape of education that I've talked about. So as you can see, we expect here to be we don't expect it to be like this. We see a dip here, like for women with some levels of education, secondary level of education. And we want to see that women in this part are suffering more from the cultural effects. So in this table, as you can see, the effect for secondary is larger. In margin, it just reaches 12%. And yeah, this is the evidence that we have for this part. As you can see, the higher education is a bit a significant effect too, but the effect is higher for secondary. The elementary part are working out of necessity because we believe that they have less income. Yeah. So this is the time use. So for the first two columns, this is the female-dominated occupation. And as you can see, family religious practice significantly increased the probability of being in the female-dominated occupations, although the significance is not quite high. And this is more in place for married sample, as we would expect that. And I mean, it is in the literature. And these two columns, third column and fourth column, are about the first two waves of time use, where the housework contains houseworks plus childcare. As you can see, again, the married sample exhibit more effect. And controlling for family housework, we see that the amount of housework done by husband significantly increased the probability of women participating in the labor market. And this is the same for all of the waves of time use, with childcare or not, and for married sample or not, but both are exhibit higher effect for married sample. So these were our main findings. As you can see, we identified two channels for the culture to affect the labor market outcomes. We believe that conservative attitudes affect participation rates, and it affects the type of occupation women choose, and results are robust across different data sets. And yeah, if I think I've done it on time or not.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're very good timekeeping. I mean, it is a very, large paper. You've done
Yeah.
massive amount of work with the, 4 surveys over so many years. So, well, thank you for keeping the time, and I'm sure there will be lots of questions. Now, we have already got some questions for the first paper, so I'll read these while waiting for question for the second paper. Nader Shamdo asks, could you please explain the postmodernist index again, please? I read a few of them, and then if Behnaz, you can respond.
Yeah.
Then Piruze Saboori says, hello, thanks for the interesting work and presentation. So is the main takeaway that women's support for interventionist policies diminish as they become more engaged with the market? So that's the question. I don't know whether you had a variable for engagement with the market, but anyway. So a third question is from Valentin Mogaddam. She says, thank you for your excellent presentation. I'm not surprised to learn that women tend to support more government intervention in the economy. The private sector is not very women friendly, but I am curious about several other stylus facts. The World Value Survey's results, Wave 7, show surprisingly high confidence in state institutions. Also, civil society institutions about Iranian women, and that, sorry, I just lost it. Okay. Iranian, and that includes women's confidence in government. But then how do we make sense of low voter turnaround? And what do we make of Mansour Moaddel's findings about increasing secularization among Iranian public? Surely that would suggest lower confidence in government, parliament, etc. So this question is not directly related to your presentation, but if you can comment on these, then we'll address other.
Okay. First, someone asked about the post-materialistic index. I just explained roughly that for this one, respondents asked to choose 2 most important goals for their country. So there were 2 questions for materialistic, 2 questions for post-materialistic. For materialistic, maintaining order in the nation and fighting rising prices, if I'm not mistaken. And for post, giving people more say in government decisions and protecting freedom of speech. And if respondents selected item 1 and 3, both of the items, it means that they are in a materialistic overview. And if both chosen item 2 and 4 post-materialistics has been detected. And mix means that one of the items from post, one of the items from materialistic has been selected. We measured materialistics and post-materialistics like this. I don't know if I could explain it clearly or not. Regarding the second question, actually, we didn't have such a variable exactly or directly in our work, but since we had employment homemakers, and we found a positive association with homemakers and support for government, from this, I want to reach to the conclusion that the vice versa of these may be resulted that those who are not homemakers, those who are working or involving in private sectors, this may be, I mean, that answer for this question. If we can extract such a things from our analysis, unless we didn't directly measure such a things.
Okay, thank you very much. There is a question for the second work from Pirooz Saboori, which says, thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I thought I saw that religious values do not negatively impact participation, only change the type of occupation. Is this correct? Well, this is for
Yes,
the,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
correct, yeah.
This is for Shayan, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, since we don't have another question, I may want to ask a question from Shayan. You know, Shayan, I'm not sure if your main estimating equation really can identify the effect of these factors like religious and conservative factor. If you go to your equation one, you know,
You need me to share my screen?
well, it doesn't matter. What I am saying is the following, that actually, since you are mixing both male and female data in the same estimation, really what your coefficients are estimating is the difference between men and female in participation, which we know is negative. Women are much less. And also in occupational choice, because by definition, female dominated occupations are there. So it's really, I think it's picking up that effect. I don't know whether, if you look at carefully at your equation, whether that constant that you multiply to the dummy variable, if you add the equation, you could see that you can factorize.
Yeah.
You can factorize your variable. Then you have one coefficient for your dependent variable, and it's really, I don't think you can identify the effect of religious factors. But your time allocation equations, of course, don't have this problem because you. So if you can focus on the first equation on only women separate, I mean, it's always a mistake to mix male and female.
You know, the problem is we did it, but the problem is that we cannot use a province fixed effect, right? So because our measure is at province, so this is like this CCP or CCO would just capture the province effect. You know what I mean? So this is the reason that we look at the difference between male and female.
Yeah.
So does this eliminate the problem that like men in all provinces like exhibit the same rate of participation? You know, they are participating at a constant rate, like near each other. But for women, the difference is captured in this equation. This is this is what we have thought of, right?
You know, your variable is at the individual level, yeah? Your dependent variable, independent variable we're talking about. And therefore, you see, it shows the difference between men and women in participation, because for women is 1, for men is 0. So that's all. So you multiply by a constant, it doesn't identify that constant. You see, that's my point. But then your time allocation ones, you don't have that problem. But you know, these time allocation ones, there's a big question of endogeneity. Because you measure religiosity by time allocated to religious practices. You measure husband's work. These are themselves endogenous. If the wife works, of course, the husband has to do some contribution. Less time, or the wife would have less time to attend to religious.
That's the reason that we used it as a like suggestive evidence.
That's another issue that you need to keep in mind. So let me see if there are other questions. Otherwise, I can continue. But okay, now we have a question from Pegah Khabaz Rahimi, Langarudi. Thanks for the presentations. For the second presentation, could you please re-indicate which survey is used to build religious index? And I would like to know if you think it's possible to also see the changes during the time using probability repeated cross-sectional data. So that's you can answer this and then we.
Yeah, both both indices came from National Value Survey of Iranian, if I get the question right. And yeah, we can see the changes in attitudes, and we have saw this, and yeah, we can see it. Yeah, but I didn't get the question right, I think.
Well, I think you
What?
show a graph of high
Yeah,
correlation
yeah,
between the two rounds. So
yeah.
the answer is already there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next question, Nader Shamlu asks, question for the second paper. Thank you for the paper. Is it possible to analyze the attitude of the husband towards women working outside home and women's market work? In other words, in other parts of the Middle East, we have found that attitudes of the husband, more than children or heaviness of care work at the husband's share, are more significantly negative. Is this
Yeah.
possible in this paper?
So the public data does not have like the individual level data. We only have the reports at the province level, so we cannot just see the attitudes of husbands on the probability of women being in the labor market. But yeah, if we access to the individual level data, this is our plan to see it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let's see if we have time. I can ask more questions. I don't know, Muhammad, is it? Are we okay to continue or?
Massoud, with respect to question of Valentine Muqaddam, I'm not sure if you want Behnaz Saboori to answer that question.
Yeah, Behnaz,
As Prof. Massoud mentioned, this is not actually related to our works. We didn't discuss this in our work, so I cannot clearly answer this question. This is beyond of our objective.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, good. Well, we can continue if you want. Well, Valentin Muqaddam has asked another question. No, it's the same question. Okay.
It's the same question.
Yeah, they have posted it. Okay. With the second paper, we can go on. I mean, this is you have done a massive amount of work, and I think you need to really divide it into a number of papers. For example, the female dominated occupation. People want to see what these are. You have to write a paper really detailed. That then, also, female participation rates. Just look at it. I mean, if you compare, for example, married women with never married women, we can see that never married women actually participation is high and is increasing. It's very normal. I mean, it's not very different from Turkey. And actually for women above the age of 25, because a lot of women these days go to university, etc., these participation rates are 50, 60%. I mean, they're quite high. The problem is the married women, and which has been very low and which has been declining. So it's important to separate these in your analysis. I think focus on married women because that's really all the literature is engaged with the issue of married women. For example, Golding, you give reference to Claudia Golding in your work. I mean, her main achievement is to look at the different structural changes in American economy, which led to more and more married women over time joining the labor market, and thus changing this patriarchal culture of women homemaker. And when you focus on married women, also there are these questions of, married women. I mean, the main difference between married and unmarried women is that married women, their opportunity cost of their time is very high. And if wages are not, and productivity and wages are low, it prevents them from participating in the labor market. In the private sector, they don't the pays are very low, and so you can look at these things to see why these cultures have persisted because, cultures change due to changing in people's circumstances, particularly if you measure the culture by these subjective views. I mean, people, usually interpret what they do the subjectivity is really changes with the material conditions and work conditions, and therefore, so it's it's important to focus on married women. What I liked about this paper is that I think this identification of different ostans or regions and the variation in these ostans in labor participation and its correlation with sort of culture is a good one. I have used it myself. But, if you look at, for example, the variation in participation rates of women during the past 2 decades, you'll see that it was very high at the beginning. And we can put down to the various cultures. But over time, the past 2 decades, these variations have really diminished. They have, converged to the mean, actually. And that shows to me that if culture was the driving force, these variations would increase, because women in more open sort of regions would participate. There would be demonstration effect, and other women would participate. Then they would become more empowered. But the fact that they have regressed to the mean, it means that there are other things like economic factors, like declining wages, etc., are also important, which is reflected in your equations also, of course. But
yeah, thank you for your comments. That's just great. One thing I want to mention is that you mentioned that we should look at the married women, and I agree with you. But the thing is, in my opinion, the problem is something with the identity in general, right? So those never married women who are working right now, they have the plan to marry and go home and be the housewife, right? So I see this like this, and I believe that I agree with you that this is the interplay between demand side and the supply side. If you don't have a good economy, it translates to participation rate. But I still believe that the first slide that I showed you, that women are reporting that they're not working because they think that they have more important responsibilities. This thing is just implies that they have identity problems other than demand side. You know what I mean? But your points are
you're now
valid.
referring to identity. Identity problems are different from culture. Culture is objective. You want to do something, but you go to the society and then you can't do it because culture doesn't allow. Identity is about subjectivity of individuals. And I mean, somebody can tell you that, look, all these unmarried women who join the labor market, they come from the same culture, from the same background as the married women. So what happens when women get married? Because they have more responsibilities. I mean, unmarried women living with their parents, they can accept any wages to go out and do jobs. Of course, most of them are also unemployed. They participate, but they are also unemployed. But I will bet that if these women get some good government jobs, they wouldn't quit the jobs after they marry. Nowadays, actually, if you look at the share of employment working for government, women's employment, it has fallen drastically the past 2 decades. It used to be, 50%, now it's 30%, because government jobs are not as available as before. Government is not expanding. So, and linked to the first paper, that women's preference for these good jobs are there. So if they get these good jobs, I don't think they will quit, because then they can afford to get, help for domestic help and, for looking after children, etc. So, yeah. So that's, there is a question.
Prof, before question, because my comment is in continuous of your work regarding Shayan study. Shayan, your research is very interesting. You did many things. And me as a researcher, which is not in your field, far from this field, I felt a little bit a theme of thesis in your work. Still, you have many things, a lot of analyses, results. So as Prof mentioned, I believe this can be two papers and with two distinct objectives.
It will be four.
You can publish here.
I would say it will be 4 papers. Yeah. Now, Mahmoud Mescoub is asking, thanks for the presentations. The second paper is focused on the supply side of labor. Do you have any ideas on the demand side? What are the impacts of discrimination in the public and private sector on the employment of women?
No, we didn't analyze that, but we certainly aware of the discrimination that is in place. So the effect that we have captured is like a cultural effect, both from the demand side and the supply side. We cannot distinguish those two, and yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Mohammed is signaling me that we are now close to our time. And thank you very much, both presenters, for excellent presentations. And we really learned a lot. And now Mohammed wants to make an announcement before we finish.
Thank you all the speakers, you, Massoud, for this excellent discussion with participants and panelists. Thanks very much. I just want to mention that our next webinar is planned for 12th of March, again on the Wednesday, in the same time. And the topic is about sanctions, the evidence and from the macro and micro evidence from Iran. And we would have two presentations. Professor Nader Habibi would talk about the effects of sanctions in the size of middle class in Iran. And Mr. Jawad Shamsi from LSE, who is talking about understanding multi-layer sanctions, the film-level analysis against from Iran, and the session would be moderated, chaired by Professor Marcel Thum from Technical University of Dresden. So I would be happy that if you plan to join, and the information would be shared on the social media soon on this event as well. Thank you very much again for this very dynamic session on the women.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prof. Massoud, for chairing this session. Thank you.
Presentation.
So have a good time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.